Fleetwood Mac, my roommate's dead. Fungus fermentation. Another Wonka reboot, JFK's assassination. It's not my favorite topic, just my brain's current fixation. Hyperfocus.
Hyperfocus, a neurodivergent podcast.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Hyperfocus, a neurodivergent podcast. This is your host, Virginia Dickens. And on this podcast, I sit down with a guest and we deep dive into our hyperfixations. And today, my guest is a writer for More Perfect Union, Sean Morrow.
Hi, yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here.
Of course.
I usually like to start the podcast off by just letting you talk a little bit about your experience being neurodivergent.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm not real deep in it. I have some pretty severe ADHD, which leads me to not do a lot of things that I need to be doing all the time. Tied with, just the higher than normal levels of anxiety. But those are the kinds of things that are able to help me in other ways too. Like hyperfocus kind of stuff.
Yeah, I hate the terminology when people are like, actually, like ADHD is a superpower.
Oh, yeah.
I hate language like that, but it's like it's nice to like acknowledge how it can be beneficial.
Right. It's like I'd rather not have it.
Right. Obviously, yeah. Life would be so much easier without it. But
it's like if you think about like Monk and Monk having OCD. Monk.
I know. You know what? I never saw Monk, and I need to see Monk.
Yeah, it's about a guy with OCD who's a really good. I don't think he's a cop. He's like a freelance cop.
A freelance cop.
Yeah. So he's not like ACAB doesn't apply to Monk. Yeah, he doesn't work for the police department, but he has OCD, so he's just like really good at noticing shit. And then it's just like, no, there's nothing that's really like that. He's like also miserable. His wife gets blown up, and then he's that's the pilot. That's not a spoiler. Okay. And then that's what triggers his OCD to be so bad. It's the one crime he can't solve.
Oh, okay. Well, now I need to watch Monk.
Yeah.
I mean, people have been telling me this. They came out with a Monk movie, didn't they?
I think so. Yeah, I think there was a COVID Monk movie. The other good detective who uses his powers, it was Rains. It only lasted one season, but he has schizophrenia. And it's Jeff Goldblum, and he pictures the murder victim, like he hallucinates the murder victim and then talks to them. And then as he learns new facts about them, the hallucination changes. It's another good, like, somebody with a neurodivergence using it for cop shit.
Right, yeah.
Most cops just have severe anger problems.
Honestly, they're using neurodivergence as propaganda, maybe, and...
That's exactly what it is.
All right, well, let's get into your hyperfixation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is the unified theory of the paranormal.
Yeah, that's what I sent you. It's also kind of just about a lot of weird supernatural subreddits that I spend a lot of time on when I'm supposed to be doing other more important things. Ever since I was a kid, I was, I think I read like there's that kind of false dichotomy that they say little boys are either into like dinosaurs or ancient Rome or something. I don't know what it is, but I was always super into aliens, Cool. That was something I always found interesting, the concept that there was maybe something more. And then in my past couple years, I guess, I read about this idea, this unified theory, and it's, again, a crackpot thing, but it's the idea that aliens and angels and Bigfoot and ghosts or whatever are all the same thing. Right? Whatever it is, who knows, what some like interdimensional thing or whatever, all the same thing. And this isn't necessarily something I give credence to in terms of it actually being interdimensional monsters or whatever, as much as it is like, oh, it is actually the same part of our consciousnesses that are noticing this, or the same bit of delusion, the same part of mind causing delusions. So that's something that's been interesting to me for a while. There's a lot about it on Reddit. I get into a lot of weird supernatural subreddits too. Spend a lot of time reading that stuff when I should be. The irony is that like I have a job where I am supposed to be doing research on things I find interesting, and I'll be doing research on the things I'm not supposed to be doing at the time.
Which subreddits specifically?
There's a really great one called High Strangeness, which is...
Because I'm going to join these.
You absolutely should, yeah. Number one, I guess I'll go through a couple rapid fire first before going into what's on them. There's High Strangeness, which is kind of like any weirdness, just general weirdness. So UFOs go in there, Bigfoot or whatever goes in there. There's our humanoid encounters, which is when people see things that look like humans. And they've got some crazy videos on there that are just like, either someone put a lot of effort into making a hoax, or it's something real.
Wait, you said things that look like humans.
Yeah, vaguely humanoid type things. So that could be a little tiny man, or a big man, or like a spindly creature. There's like this one I saw of like it's somewhere in Arizona, and it's like they're in their backyard at night, and there's this like rock. And then this like little tiny man keeps peeking out from behind the rock, and it's like a very tiny man, not like a normal tiny man. And it just keeps peeking out, and they're like, yeah, look, there's a tiny little man over there. There's another one on there of like this guy, he's doing a Facebook Live, and he's just like smoking a cigarette, and then he films his backyard, and then this just huge thing runs by, and he just goes, whoop, and quickly hides his camera. So it takes up a lot of my time, but yeah.
So those are like the two main ones.
Those are two of my favorites off the top of my head. There's a lot of good UFO ones too. All the UFO ones, they're like super angry. They're like, why won't the government tell us? And it's like, yeah.
I've run into, I've noticed that too. People, I feel like especially the UFO community is like more upset about, like they think the government's hiding things from us, or like things aren't being revealed as much, and they think it's like way like super provable. Which, not to like argue that it's true or not true, but maybe it's just like there are other reasons why possibly it's not time yet to acknowledge UFOs.
Yeah. There's something that we don't know. It's not, we don't, I think the question is it aliens or not? Because there's people seeing stuff.
Exactly. There's people seeing stuff that technologically, unlike things that we have. And also, wasn't there like a government Congress meeting or something like last year about
like
UFOs?
Air Force guys seeing weird stuff, and they're all like, we don't know what it is. So technically, it is an unidentified flying object.
Yeah.
Like unidentified flying objects are real. I think they were calling them like UAPs or something, which is a different name. I think unidentified aerial phenomena.
When I was looking into the unified theory of the paranormal, I watched a YouTube video on it, and then I couldn't really find that much other information other than like, even in the YouTube video, they were just like, they just listed books.
Right.
They're like, here's a book on it, here's a book on it, here's a book on it. Like, have you read any of those?
I've done most of my reading online.
Yeah.
There's also this one really good quote-unquote docu-series called Hellier about this group of ghost paranormal investigators who they get a letter from a strange man about little goblins running around in his backyard.
Okay.
And then they go to his backyard, and then somehow it ties into like the Mothman and aliens and all this other shit. They make a very compelling case, but then it's just them in like caves, like saying, "Oh, there's a fucking Hellier over there." I don't know if they called them Helliers. I think that was the name of the town. But they're just these like tiny little goblins, and that's where I first heard of it, was from this docuseries.
Okay.
That's like weirdly well produced. Like it looks very expensive, but they never find anything. They just like get weird letters from a strange man about tiny little goblins.
Interesting.
And then all the drawings look the same. You know what I mean? So there's like this dude saw it, and the drawings look the same as this guy that saw it, and they all kind of look like the Jersey Devil or whatever. Which is where the idea of it all being the same thing, right? And then that's where when you talk about like the crazy dude with the hair who's famous on Ancient Aliens, right? He's saying like, oh, when you look at these drawings, they're the same as what modern people say when they see aliens, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm saying that all these things are connected, but maybe it is the same delusion. Maybe it is the same part of our brain hallucinating something.
Also, it's either like a delusion, or sometimes I feel like too, it's just like a certain level of consciousness that people discuss also, where at least in the one time I went to New Orleans, I stayed in like an old hotel, and one night like our hotel phone rang, and then there was like a knock on the door or something like that. And the next morning, my mom and I were talking to like the staff down in the lobby, and we're like, oh, someone, these things happen, and they kind of played it off at first, and we kept asking, and then they finally were like, okay, yeah, there's a ghost here, and she likes to play, and we learned more about this like ghost that like lives in this hotel. And then they said something like she, and probably all ghosts in a way, like only really present themselves to people that are like open to receiving it. So like that's also an interesting, it could be like this is a delusion, or it could be you're like in a different state of consciousness that you can like witness this.
Attuned to something else. Yeah, I guess like, to get somewhat real about it, the only version of spirituality I have is that this can't fucking just be it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the fact that consciousness exists or whatever. And then the general understanding of like something like seeing a ghost or seeing something like, I feel like I've seen stuff in the past that I legitimately forget. But if I looked outside and there was like a portal opened up in the street, I would just be like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? Like it wouldn't be that surprising to me. I would just be like, oh, yeah, all right, cool. Maybe I'll go in. You know what I mean? I don't know. Or like a UFO or something, I would just be like, oh, huh. Cool, yeah, that makes total sense to me.
Again, I think it is limited to think that like everything just kind of stops and ends here, because there's just so much that we like still don't know. I mean, I don't know like to what extent then it's also hard to like concretely be like it's definitely aliens, it's definitely Bigfoot, because also we don't know that concretely either. But there's like a lot of coincidences and things too that can like tie in, which I'm sure you like read about a lot on Reddit.
They call them synchronicities. Synchronicities are a big part of the Hellier thing, and they think like there's a significance to when there's synchronicities, which is also like what Jung said, like Jung, not Neil Young, that like that synchronicities are like noticing synchronicities are important psychologically in the same way that like dreams are and stuff. And when we notice them and when we don't, which brings me to one. Let me pull this up. One of the a recent post I saw on this website that was like. Wait, here it is. So there's a lot of very funny posts on High Strangeness, including this one where a guy says, "Whenever someone gets my name wrong, they always call me Kevin." So this may not seem like something that's highly strange, but it's highly anomalous to me. Ever since I was a young man in my 20s, I've noticed that people often call me Kevin. That's not my name. I used to get called Kevin in meetings or over the phone at my first corporate job. I've had it printed in my mail, put on name tags, and used as a greeting header in my email. This May, I went to a bar that they frequent for the May the 4th Be With You party. Yeah, that's who you're getting here. And yeah, the owner who knew him for 10 years kept calling him Kevin. So it's just like, these are the things that these people are noticing is like, oh, everyone just keeps calling this guy Kevin.
Okay, I feel like in my head it's like either two things. Like, does he reveal what his actual name is?
He does not say what his actual name is.
Okay, because it could be a name close to Kevin.
It's like Calvin.
Yeah. It could be that, or maybe it's something like, I don't know, Kevin is like a past life thing or something like that too.
And when you say somebody has like, sometimes people don't look like their names, it's like, oh, it is coming from a vibe. And he has a Kevin vibe, which is just like, I can picture a Kevin,
Oh, 100%, yeah. And you can picture, it's something when someone doesn't match their name either, and maybe that is like, it's like a soul like situation where people are just kind of naming the soul as opposed to the being kind of. Yeah.
So he feels like a Kevin, and that's like the kind of thing you notice. And it's like, you start to notice these things generally, like when huge or big coincidences pop up, you start to notice. And that's the kind of stuff that they're all tying into this what they think is this some kind of supernatural entity. In terms of these coincidences, sometimes people are noticing trends like this post I noticed on High Strangeness. Humanity's struggle with a dark spiritual nemesis fuels all of our apocalyptic crises. And I'm like, okay, I don't think it is what you think it is, but that's just capitalism.
Yes.
That's the dark spiritual nemesis fueling all of our... You're right, dude. And it's like they dance around it. And they're like talking about fossil fuels, and they're talking about like hoarding, but they never say the word capitalism.
Yes.
And it's like, I agree. There is this dark spiritual entity. It's just you're not naming it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting to see, because I am in like our spirituality subreddit, but I haven't delved into like as much like supernatural subreddits. But even in our spirituality, it's like you can still see some people like not getting it.
Right.
Not that I'm like an expert in spirituality by any means, but I think like it's like missing big themes or like not accepting like certain just realities that would make like everything else a lot clearer.
Oh, totally, yeah.
It's hard because we like live in this reality and like these constructs that are like super ingrained. So it's hard, I think, for a lot of people to. It's easy to grasp onto some concepts and then like let go of others.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think like our spirituality in the High Strangeness, it's like our spirituality is for girls and High Strangeness is for boys. I think that's how it probably breaks down.
That's so funny.
It's like men don't want to be like, oh, spirituality in a stupid, insecure way. So they go on High Strangeness instead, and then they're just talking about the same stuff.
Alien, yeah. Even though it's so funny because like I've just been like more recently dipping my toes into spirituality, and I feel like all of the big like spirituality people are like men. Like, and it is a fine line of like I try to be hyper aware of this because you do dance that fine line of then getting into cults or like pyramid scheme type things. Like a lot of those themes do kind of overlap with like exploitation sorts of things. And so like I try to always keep awareness too of like what information I'm taking and like where it's coming from, because a lot of the like, because spirituality can like dip into like more self-help stuff too, and then that can like that was like what Nexium was. Essentially it's what a lot of them are, and then I have to like stop and be like, is this like useful information or is this kind of gaslighty, or like how do you go from there? And I guess maybe in like supernatural stuff there's less room for that.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. I think with spirituality, there definitely is. Like, my mom did the Ho'oponopono, which was like a Hawaiian mysticism that was appropriated by white people, and they used to sell these like stickers that you would stick on things to cleanse them that were like $50, and it's like, of course, and anything like this is going to have stuff like that, or it was like a paying for co-star, that's like, I don't know.
Oh, I've given CoStar money.
Yeah.
and then I stopped. But yeah.
What does it come with? When you pay for CoStar, what does it come with?
So I never paid for like full blown CoStar, but you can pay for like extensions of like, I think I paid extra money to get like my like love section. With astrology, people always, and that's like the hook. That's how you make money, is like talk about love stuff. Because that's what most people are seeking out in astrology, is like, when am I going to fall in love with a who, et cetera. And so that profile was like blocked, and I think it was like $10 or something. So I paid for it, and I didn't like I didn't really care for what they had to say.
It's a smart business model though, because they already had your money.
It is. I have this like pattern with that of like going too deep into it, and then I'm like, time to pull back.
Yeah.
I gave them my money. Now that's too much. Like backtrack.
They make it so easy. Just give them $10 or whatever, and you don't even think about it.
Yeah. What do you think in terms of the unified theory of the paranormal? Like, do you think it's all connected, or?
I think there's something more to what we see. As I've said, I think there's something more to what we see with normally, right? In terms of thinking these things are all connected, I think it is coming from the same place. It is coming from the same place of maybe a desire that there's something more, which is why I think a lot of people believe in conspiracies. A lot of people have trouble coping with the fact that this is it. I think that's kind of like what, of course, this movie is also about like trans identity, but I think that's a big part of what I Saw the TV Glow is about too, of like not being able to deal with the fact that this is it. Or the TV show The Magicians, which is about like kind of like a dark version of Harry Potter, and it's people in a world where fantasy novels exist, finding out they're wizards, but then there's like nothing to do with their wizardness, right? So it's about realizing like, no, this is it, and that's a hard thing to deal with, is to understand, especially I think for millennials, like understanding, no, you're never going to get taken away to wizard school, you're never going to go on an adventure through the universe. That's not going to happen. Yeah. It's just this. This is all you have. This is all we get. And I think people do have a hard time coping with that. And then maybe I think this is kind of trying to fill that hole. But then there might also just be something there.
Yeah, because the main ones are like ghosts, like Bigfoot, like sighting, things like that, and then UFOs.
Yeah. Or, alien abduction as well. And a lot of people who have been abducted by aliens have reported seeing very similar things,
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't delved too much into alien abduction. Is that like, how common is that?
How common is that? All the time.
On the Reddits?
No. I don't think it's that common, but it's like, I think it's way less common than it used to be. But most people, like, there's always similarities between people that report being abducted by aliens. There's always similarities. And of course there's grifters, and then there's famous alien abductees who make a career out of going to like alien conventions.
Right.
Like Travis Walton is a dude he got abducted by he's like a logger that got abducted by an alien supposedly, and he just literally his entire job is he just goes around to alien conventions and talks about it, and he makes a living off of it. Good for him. That's great.
I mean, there's so many ways to grift.
Yeah.
Like, is that the worst way? I don't know.
No, sure. I don't think he's hurting anybody.
Yeah.
And maybe he was actually abducted, and this is like a traumatic thing that happened. It's probably fucking terrible. You don't want that to happen to you.
No, I mean, well, okay. This kind of like delves a bit now into like my topic, but I want to make sure we've covered everything that you have to say.
This is a synchronicity.
It is a synchronicity, which is the weirdest part, because I was planning on doing like my topic, which is Bashar, which is an extraterrestrial being channeled through this guy named Darryl Anka, and I've been really into these, like watching these channelings, but then I got into like the background of like, who is Bashar? How did this like whole story come into place? And like alien abductions kind of like plays into it a little bit.
Right.
Well, are you familiar with Bashar?
I'm not. No,
Okay.
I looked up a little bit when you told me, but no, yeah.
It sounds ridiculous when I tell people. I'm like, do you know Bashar? It's like this guy channels this like alien, and people just look at me like I'm nuts. And I'm like, no, but like it's good information. I'm like, no, it's like useful stuff. And I think I got into it through TikTok. Because I think, like, I'm on, like, astrology talk, obviously, and, like, tarot TikTok, which is, like, so dangerous to be on. And then I feel like through there, it kind of starts to feed you more, like, spirituality stuff, which I appreciate. And then I was getting Bashar TikToks, which, if you've seen them, it's this man, Darryl Anka, is the channeler. And he's bald and, like, always wears, like, Hawaiian shirts. And when he's channeling, like, his hands are like clasped together and his eyes are closed. So like that's kind of this personification as he's like channeling Bashar. And again, I try to be really careful about spirituality and like where this information is coming from and like what the messages actually are. And a lot of the messaging is like similar to other spirituality stuff I've kind of read. And I'm like, okay, it's like basic spirituality stuff kind of repurposed through this channel. Like I like how the message is delivered, but it's like similar messaging to other stuff. So it's nothing too like crazy. But I watched a documentary called First Contact, that they made about Darryl. Because I'm like, how do you do this? Because Darryl has been channeling Bashar for like 40 years. And it started back in like 73 with a UFO sighting. He had 2 UFO sightings with like witnesses. It was the same UFO, like a perfect triangle out in California. And then like a decade later, he was just doing research into channeling and met this channel who was, channeling an entity and, found it interesting. And like that entity was like teaching a class on channeling or something. So he attended it. And then in a meditation within that class had an interaction with Bashar that came through, and like without just like he was like experiencing this, and like something came to him that in like a past life he like told Bashar he would be doing this channeling work in like the next life, and then without like saying anything, that channeler and the entity like teaching this course turned to him and was like, it seems like we have extraterrestrial channeling through you if you like are open to like taking this journey sort of thing, which is so interesting. And then through that class, I guess there was someone there who was doing a doctoral thesis on channeling and like psychology. And so she would like study Darryl channeling and invite like friends. And like each week, this is according to Darryl, each week like more friends would show up, and it kind of just grew like word of mouth. It started like channeling from once a week to twice a week. And then now it's like convention sort of things. Like people like will pay money to come and like sit and listen to Darryl channeling Bashar.
See, that's what's concerning is with anything like this, when he's never talking to people about, here's how you can learn to channel. He's talking about how he's the one that can channel.
Yes.
And he's the one getting the message.
Yes.
Right? And that's what's always concerning to me with these things. With like, at my old job, I did a show about different ways the world could end. And it was mostly real shit, like, climate change or whatever. But then we did a few fun episodes mixed in, like aliens or whatever. Actually, no, this wasn't a serious episode about like a meteor hitting.
Yeah.
And there's this woman, Nancy Leader. She's the head of the conspiracy about Nibiru, which says that another planet just like ours is going to crash into our Earth.
Oh, wow.
Right? And she claims she gets messages from aliens that are telling her this. And she has followers. She has a cult that are listening, like they believe her. I mean, she's like, no, they're telling me this, trust me, right? And when it comes to saying just trust me, like that's when it becomes weird. I went out to her house in the middle of nowhere.
Oh shit! Yeah, you met her. Okay.
Yeah. She lives with her her adult son, in like her grown adult son who sleeps in like a sad little room in her house in the middle of nowhere. And she channels aliens. She has a lot of people believing her. If you've heard of the idea of like Planet X or something, this all comes from her. And we did this whole interview with her. I had found out that at one point she said like the planet is going to hit tomorrow, and all of my followers will be ascended to live on that planet, but animals can't come. So a bunch of her followers killed their pets.
What
and I like
the
asked her
fuck?
about that, and she really just refused to talk to it. And then she like offered us cookies. Me and the whole rest of the crew, and we all were like, we're not going to eat the cookies because we weren't
that's
sure.
smart. That's really smart.
And then like her son took us into his room to show us he built this huge dome that he was trying to sell to the Department of Defense to cover Las Vegas, just so people could live in. But then he was also like, by the way, I actually don't believe anything my mom says. None of this is true about the things going. And we're like, oh, really? Do you want to talk more about that? And he's like, yeah, I talked to the aliens too, and they're telling me completely different things. So it wasn't that she thought it was bullshit. He was just getting different messages. And then we just didn't use any of that shit because it was crazy. But because we went into the middle of nowhere in Wisconsin for no reason, and we didn't use any of it. But it's the same thing with even like Christianity. Like if you look at the early like Gnostic Gospels, right?
Yeah.
They were about looking inward, right? They were about basically meditation. Like it was almost Buddhist.
Yeah.
Like and not like the words of actual Jesus or whatever, but like the stuff that was being written around that time. And then like Catholicism, whatever, adds a power structure. There's a guy you need to trust.
Yes.
Or evangelicalism adds a guy that you need to trust instead of it just being about figuring it yourself. And that's kind of what the vibe I get from this, where it's like this dude saying, I'm channeling, you have to trust me.
Yes, I hear you on that too. But in this way, it feels because I am looking, I'm like, are there like followers?
Right.
And I don't really see followers. And also like very rarely does Bashar do anything that's like predictive.
Right.
Or like this is going to happen or you need to do this. And from what I can tell, what costs money in this is like paying to go hear Bashar. And then you can, like the online stores, like you can pay for the speaking sessions that have happened. And like that's all I can really find in terms of like merch. And then because in my head I'm like, oh, like what would a pyramid scheme like this look like? And I'm like, oh, it would probably be like the channeler teaches the channel, like it goes like that.
Right. Have you pulled any useful advice out of this that you use for your life?
Oh yeah, a bunch. Well, I mean, it's a lot of just like repurposed spirituality stuff, but a lot of it is like, yeah, just stuff like it doesn't matter what happens, but how you respond to it, or like you have everything you need in and of yourself. Like an example, Yeah, exactly. It's like pretty basic. It's like the delivery is like nice. Like it's just another way of like kind of giving up a level of control that our brains try to do to protect ourselves, like by, our brains worry about stuff, or we want things to go a certain way because we think that's how it should be for us to be happy. It's like all of that, and it kind of takes the pressure off of that. And it's like, this is beyond you. All you have to worry about. You have all you need in this moment, and a lot of that sort of stuff.
No, that's all super helpful stuff. And I think, like, if that's what he's receiving, that's what he's receiving. And that those are things that can be helpful to a lot of people, I think. I just always get wary when someone's like, "This, I'm the one that can communicate. You can't."
Yeah, and he even took some years off though to like pursue his film career. He like lives in LA too, which also gives me a little pause. He's like you know what I mean? He's like, I took some time off to pursue my film career, and I'm like, Darryl. But I guess now he just like runs a series of like when he's not channeling, like runs a series of escape rooms with his wife.
Amazing. There's a very specific kind of guy that does that stuff. Like,
So I think you will find this interesting because I wrote this down because it's like the story of like, well, what the fuck, who is Bashar, and like the origin story of this like entity. So like the origin of Bashar and his people began in a parallel reality on an alternate version of Earth. And the humans on that Earth were like technologically far in advance, like more than us. And they became so focused on technology and intellect that over generations, they lost their ability to connect to their humanity and their ability to feel. So they like genetically mutated, but also realized they needed like human DNA to survive.
Right.
So they like shifted into parallel realities like Earth to like extract DNA. And then it said it took centuries to complete their hybrid civilization.
Right.
And so now their purpose is to bring emotion and spirituality and balance and vitality and to like reconnect more fully with creation so their culture will never die out. It's like a nice message.
Yeah, totally.
It's a nice idea that like they destroy their society by technology. They're here to help us that way.
Yeah, so they just came here to jerk people off and take their DNA to start their own society. Like,
yeah, pretty much. And now it's like they have.
Got spooked.
Well, I don't know. It's like these alien abductions. I don't know what. Like, I haven't really read too much into alien abductions and what people say happens when they go there.
Yeah, lots of being taken to ships, probing. There's a famous one. I believe it's called not Contact. There's a Communion is a famous one with like a very famous picture of like a alien's head on the cover of like this dude who's like very normal. It's like all this stuff happened to me, and he was like taken like put in like a pod like in the Matrix, like long before the Matrix came out. Like maybe that's even where they got the idea from the Matrix. So yeah, they do lots of weird stuff. It's like about sciencey kind of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then now there's a movie version of that with Christopher Walken where he dances with the aliens, and it's a great like 7-minute scene of him just dancing with guys in alien costumes in like 1975.
Oh wait, that reminds me too. The narrator of this documentary about Bashar is James Woods.
Oh wow, that's so funny.
Which I think is really funny.
Yeah, that's super funny. Like, yeah, that's all they could get. Yeah,
exactly. And you have like narrated by James Woods.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my god.
That's like where their whole budget went.
Yeah, exactly. So again, I like the message. Like, I think that's why I'm like, this is fine because I think I like the messaging and I like that like. How Bashar came about was because their society was destroyed, kind of like how ours is being destroyed, and they want to like help us. And I mean, whether it's true or not, too, I'm also like, if there are like extraterrestrial beings or aliens, it is a nice thought to like know that they are like wise and kind, and like this information is like coming from. It's like not fear-based. It's like. I find it to be much more like love-based and like really productive. And I'm like, that is like just a nice thought in general to be like,
totally.
Oh, maybe they do just like know more than us and they want to pass on their like wisdom so we don't repeat their mistakes.
Right.
Is kind of my takeaway.
No, that makes total sense. Like as if they're us from an alternate far future or something. Is all not a common theory about what UFOs are, just humans from the far future. That could be something like that. Yeah, no, totally. I don't think it's actually harmful. It's just whenever it's always.
But it can't. It's a fine line.
Yeah, it's
and
always
like,
a red flag to me with that. Like you have to trust me. I'm the one getting the messages.
No,
I'm the one with the receiver.
Definitely. And that's where I literally have specifically searched like on Reddit to Bashar like cult following, like hoax. Well, some people get upset because they're like, why can't he just prove Bashar's real and have like a UFO come down and like we meet Bashar, you know, like that sort of thing, which is like what a lot of UFO guys are kind of like. And like they explain that by just ultimately we're operating on different frequencies and like they're much more advanced and on a higher frequency than us. Darryl described it as sort of like two gears. If you are trying to merge two gears like in a machine or something and one's operating at a higher frequency and one's operating at a lower, it's going to clash.
Right.
This was interesting too. I meant to bring up that Darryl does say that like anyone can channel. Anyone, and we do channel. Everyone does. And channeling essentially is like when you are so consumed in what you're doing, like the time flies by, like an artist painting or like an actor that becomes the character.
Right.
And that is what Darryl considers you are channeling. You're like channeling a higher being, a higher version of yourself, which I also think is a nice thought.
No, that's super cool. And you hear
Yeah.
artists say that they
Yeah.
were like, yeah, this just came through me
Yeah.
very frequently. And I think that happens to everybody from like very, not to like have levels of art, but like people writing symphonies or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then like, I feel like I heard like, not Jerry Seinfeld, but somebody like that who's just got a corny observational
My stand-up got channeled to me through aliens.
No, exactly. So I don't think it was Jerry, but it was someone along those lines. I was like, yeah, this all just came to me.
Mm-hmm.
I had to be the one to say it. But if you think about it, what a comedian like that does that style of comedy is just distilling what society like. Oh, he says what we're all thinking, kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know. And
Yeah.
then, but he's also a piece of shit Zionist.
He is. So Bashar has these 5 laws of existence that I think are like nice. And I also wondering if you've like come across these in your side of the. It's so interesting that we're on different sides of the like spirituality or like even alien stuff and like haven't really crossed over into each other's stuff, but there's like a lot of overlap. But these are Bashar's like 5 laws of existence, which number 1 is you exist. Number 2, everything is here and now. Number 3, the one is the all and the all are the one. Number 4, what you put out is what you get back. And then number 5 is everything changes except the last 4 laws.
Right. That's super good. Yeah. And I think those are all things that you do see popping up in a lot of other spiritual thought and a lot of other religions, like the Ram Dass book, like Remember Be Here Now, or even in the Hawaiian thing that my mom did that was kind of culty, but was must equally good, has that like we are all one kind of thing. Like all these things kind of tie together, you know, because everyone's getting the same messages. I don't know.
Yeah. Thank you so much for chatting
Thanks
with
for having
me about this. It's like so, again, crazy that we have very synchronized topics. I thought for sure, I was like, I'm going to come in here, I'm going to talk about aliens with Sean, and Sean's going to be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, that's like, I was like, I cannot wait to talk about aliens with Sean, and Sean's going to be like, you're insane. And instead you're like...
I was like, I came in with alien stuff too. I came with more than alien stuff.
You can follow Sean on Instagram and Twitter and other social media places, perhaps at Sean Morrow, but it is spelled SNMRRW, and that'll be linked in the show notes as well. And if you would like to support this show, this podcast, we have a Patreon set up, linked in the show notes as well. And you can also follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Hyperfocus Comedy. I am Virginia Dickens, and this has been Hyperfocus, a neurodivergent podcast.